called by the Spirit, consecrated to God in community, dedicated to missionary service, and committed to the world of today. These are the Missionary Sisters of St. Columban. The Columban Sisters are a congregation of women religious whose commitment to God leads them to cross boundaries of culture, language, and belief in their missionary outreach of proclaiming the gospel of Jesus to the world. The sisters live and work in small, intercultural communities, among the poor and marginalized, in diverse countries around the globe. Sharing life together in community helps the sisters clarify the focus of their mission in a particular place and support each other in living out that commitment. Prayer, both personal and communal, is important in their lives. Because of their missionary commitment, the Columban sisters are open to different cultures and faith traditions. This cross-cultural mission is a defining element of their identity as missionary sisters. They believe that God is present in all cultures and among all peoples. They make their home among the people they serve, share life with them, and encourage them to assume responsibility for the creation of their own future. The sisters often live in places of pain and struggle, which make them aware of the global realities that affect the most vulnerable among us. In their ministry, they try to care for all life in a creative, inclusive, and relational way, and promote the dignity of all, especially women. They do so through a variety of services, including pastoral outreach, educational services, care of the sick, social services, faith and spirituality, and justice and peace. Through their life commitment and their various forms of service, the Columban sisters give expression to their missionary commitment, a commitment rooted in baptism. Today, this mission is lived out in a variety of different countries. What began as a mission to China has grown and expanded to include many countries in Asia and South America. The congregation came into being in Ireland more than 80 years ago as a result of the shared vision and collaboration of Francis Maloney and Father John Blowick, a founding member of the Society of St. Columban, whose priests were working in China. There, they saw the need for sisters to work with the poor, particularly the women and children. The whole venture was put under the patronage of St. Columban, a 6th century Irish monk who was famous for his missionary work on the mainland of Europe. In 1922, the first group of women, including Frances Maloney, now known as Sister Mary Patrick, began their training for missionary religious life, and 4 years later, the sisters set sail for China. From the very beginning, the sisters' ministry of education and healthcare in China was carried out in a country chronically threatened by famine, war, and natural disasters. For 30 years, the sisters shared the hardships of the people. Then, in the early 1950s, they were expelled from mainland China by the new communist government. It was to be more than 40 years before they could again set foot in China. The sisters did, however, continue their work for the Chinese people, opening a hospital in Hong Kong for the treatment of tuberculosis, and providing services for the poor and the refugees. Today, Hong Kong is a world-class metropolis and one of the major financial centers of the world. However, hidden from society's view are those who are not included in this newfound wealth. The work of the Columban sisters in Hong Kong has also changed with the years, and now their ministry includes services such as pastoral care of the sick and dying, services for women exploited by the illegal entertainment industry, visitation in prisons, faith formation in local parishes, and a retreat center. More recently, the sisters have been able to return to mainland China. There they work in a professional capacity as teachers and specialized healthcare providers. Though they are not permitted to openly share their faith, the sisters believe that their presence is their mission. It is a particular joy for the sisters to be of service once again to the people of China and the land that had so captured the hearts of the early Columban missionaries. In 1939, the Columban sisters were invited to work in the Philippines, a tropical country of over 7,000 islands that is predominantly Catholic and blessed with many priests and sisters. The work of the sisters in the Philippines is primarily with those who are often forgotten and on the margins of society. This includes the physically and mentally challenged for whom they run an educational center. They work with women and children who suffer the pain of discrimination and exclusion in family and society. They also offer a listening ear and a caring presence to some of the thousands of poor people who are forced to live in vacant lots scattered among the high-rise buildings of Manila, the capital city. Some sisters work in more formal educational programs, teaching English and theology, and preparing Asian sisters and priests for ministry in their own countries. In the southern Philippines, the sisters live and work with an indigenous people called the Subanans, whose very existence as a people is threatened by the illegal logging and mining that are destroying their ancestral lands. In the Philippines, there is a particular emphasis on ecology and on dialogue with other cultures. In this way, the sisters accompany the Filipino people on their journey toward a more just and peaceful existence. In 1947, 5 Columban sisters arrived in Burma, now known as Myanmar. The country is located between India and China, where most of the people still follow the ancient teachings of Buddhism. Historians call Myanmar the land of the golden pagodas because everywhere, in city and countryside, shrines to the Buddha can be found dotting the landscape. The original Columban sisters staffed a school in Cochin State, 1,000 miles north of the capital of Rangoon. During those early years in Burma, the political situation was at times very unstable. Then, in 1966, the work of the sisters came to an abrupt end when all missionaries were asked to leave the country. They left behind a thriving Catholic community that has remained strong and faithful up to the present. Over the intervening years, the mutual love and respect that had developed between the sisters and the Kachin people was never extinguished. After a long absence, the Columban sisters have been allowed once again to enter the country, where they hope to work in basic health care and in the education of future church personnel. The Columban sisters arrived in Korea in 1955. The Korean War had just ended and the country was in ruins. The sisters opened a small hospital in the coastal city of Mapo, and soon afterwards a clinic close to the North Korean border. Over the years, the sisters have taken on many other new ventures on behalf of those most in need. As local church personnel became more available, the sisters moved on, and today their ministry is directed to those who are most on the fringes of society: the poor who don't have access to medical care, refugees, the handicapped, the dying, people suffering from AIDS, and women caught in the web of the illegal entertainment industry. Korea is a country with a long and proud history. The Korean people have held on to their Christian faith for centuries despite persecution and without contact with the outside world. Most Korean people follow the teachings of Buddhism, with only about 10% following the Christian faith. Despite this, there are many Korean vocations to religious life and priesthood. The Columban sisters hope to continue to make a difference in the lives of the Korean people, and in turn be enriched by them as they continue to be a sign of Christ's love among his suffering poor. The Columban sisters went to Peru in 1962 to help provide health care and education for the people who had migrated from the mountains to the capital city, Lima. These people were living in extreme poverty on the edges of the city. Today, more than 40 years later, the population of Lima has risen from 2 million to 8 million, with people still coming to the coastal cities. The sisters continue to live and work with them as they struggle to realize their dreams for a brighter future. The Peruvian people are a warm-hearted and friendly people who have a very deep faith in God, a gift that has been passed on from one generation to the next. In the past, opportunities to deepen the knowledge of their faith were not always available to them. Today, many of them meet weekly in small groups to reflect on the Word of God and try to discover God's presence in their lives. Often, the sisters accompany them. They also work to help prepare local leaders to take responsibility for running the various sacramental programs, including baptism, First Communion, and confirmation. The sisters' work in Peru is varied depending on the needs of the people. They work with the poor, the physically and mentally challenged, the elderly and sick, and with people, particularly women, who are suffering the effects of the violence that has racked the country for many years. The Columban sisters' dream is to see their work in Peru continue into the future, so that all may realize their full dignity as human beings created in the image of God. The country of Chile is a beautiful and diverse land, and the Chilean people are joyful and friendly by nature. In 1973, however, life changed dramatically for them. The democratically elected government was overthrown by a military coup, and an age of fear and oppression began. Chileans looked to the church for guidance and support, but there was a severe shortage of local clergy, especially in the poorer urban areas. The local church called for the assistance of missionaries, and the Columban sisters answered the call. The sisters went to Chile in 1974 and became a part of the local community, living among the poor in simple little houses. From these little homes, they began the work of accompanying the people as they dealt with the realities of their lives. The sisters visit people in their homes, attend to their medical needs, work in parishes teaching catechism in family-centered programs, and in the formation of basic Christian communities. In a country where people suffer from constant oppression, poverty, and lack of hope, many seek escape in alcohol and drugs. In response, the sisters have established programs for those addicted to drugs and alcohol, as well as for their families. Today, the Columban sisters continue to walk by the side of the Chilean people, to show their solidarity, and to provide a bright spark of hope in the day-to-day struggle of life. The Columban sisters went to Pakistan in 1990 to serve the Christian community in Hyderabad Diocese in the province of Sindh. Pakistan is 97% Muslim. Hindus, Christians, and other religions form a minority. The sisters reach the Christian, Muslim, and Hindu communities through education, pastoral visits, literacy programs, primary health care, and work for justice that strives for the empowerment of the poor and marginalized, with a particular focus on women. The sisters see their mission as dialogue with Muslims and Hindus with whom they have daily contact. This dialogue of life brings the sisters into contact with ancient and varied cultures and with a variety of peoples. In this way, they hope they may help to create a more caring and just society for all. The missionary work of the Columban sisters in diverse lands and cultures is supported by their ministries in Ireland, England, Scotland, and the United States. Through their various ministries, the sisters try to deepen awareness that the call to mission is for all the baptized. They draw attention to the needs of those most excluded and marginalized, and work to create a more just and equitable world for all people. They endeavor to generate funds to support the work of the sisters in faraway lands, and invite everyone they meet to become involved in helping to make the gospel vision of Jesus more real in our world. To be a missionary is to walk along diverse paths, not always certain of the way or where it may lead. Early in the last century, the Missionary Sisters of St. Columban were founded to work in China. Since then, the Columban missionary presence has spread to many lands around the world. As missionaries to the nations, the Columban sisters are engaged in a diversity of ministries, in cities and remote rural villages, in deserts and on mountain hilltops, among the young and the old, the terminally ill and the homeless. The challenge for the sisters is to be ready to leave all that is familiar and spend their lives in the service of their most forgotten brothers and sisters. It is this spirit that inspired the early Columban